Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's Thursday night, which means it's match preview showtime ahead of this Saturday's encounter in Wales with Newport County. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by Ian, and he is part of the very successful 1912 Exiles Newport County podcast. First of all, Ian, appreciate you coming on to have a chat. Hope you're well and looking forward to the game Saturday.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to be on, Matt. I'll be looking forward to the game Saturday. I think that for both of us, our seasons maybe have not panned out so far as we would have expected at the start. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
I think that's probably a fair assumption. We'll get on to score predictions and that whatnot later on in the video, but I can't see it being a goal fest. Let's put it that way. Let's kick off with recent form. Obviously, Gills played in the Cup Tuesday evening. FA Cup replay managed to squeeze past National League Northside AFC Fylde. Did miss a penalty in that game and a couple of chances, but in the hat for the second round. Newport have had a free midweek, so they will be arrested, recuperated and refreshed ahead of the game. But looking at last six in the league, it's not great reading for either side. Newport have taken 5 points from 18. That's a single win, 2 draws and 3 defeats. Gills have somehow managed to be even worse. 3 draws, 3 losses, 3 points from 18 available. Home and away, if we're breaking it down a little bit further, Ian. You've not been great at home. We're not great away. So it comes back to that. It's not going to be a classic again. 4 points from the last half dozen for Graham Coughlin's men. So that's a single win, a single draw, 4 defeats. Gills is exactly the same as their overall record. It's 3 draws, 3 losses, 3 points from 18. Absolutely horrendous reading. Newport have blanked in 3 of the last 6 at home. Gills have scored twice in the league on the road.
It's going to be 4-4, isn't it? It's going to be 4-4.
I'm not going to waste money. Sell it to the people, Ian. Come on. It's going to be a great game.
Well, I think it'll be, we played reasonably well against Stockport in our last game, and they looked a decent side, to be fair. And we had a pretty good battle with them in the first half and took the lead and looked okay. We then managed to shoot ourselves in the foot with an absolutely calamitous goalkeeping error for them to level up, and then made another defensive mistake for them to take the win. They did deserve the win overall, but there was plenty of, there was encouragement from that game in terms of, I think Stockport, although they're not setting the world on fire, I think they'll do okay this year. We've recently had a draw away at Northampton, a draw away at Mansfield. So I think what Coughlin has looked to do since he's come in is to try and solidify us a little bit and try and cut out some of those silly mistakes. And I think the view is if we can keep it tight at the back and play a more pragmatic style of football. So we've then got Omar Bogle up front, who does divide the fans, but he has got 7 goals in the league and 9 overall so far. So I think, he has got the ability to have a bit of quality in him. So I think the view from our side will be, we're going to try and keep it fairly tight. We've got a really good pair of wing backs, so we're going to try and go down the sides and get the ball in for Bogle. That's going to be what we're going to try and do against you guys. If you have a hard run in midfield and have runners that move on, that could cause us a problem, because our midfield, I think, our view is that's where our problems lie, really. It's in the middle of the park rather than at the back or the front. The middle's the issue.
Well, if you're looking for opponents to play against, desperate to solidify defensively and keep clean sheets, it's probably us. 6 goals in 17 league games tells its own story. I'm getting a bit bored of saying it, but be interesting to see then whether we do go with legs in the middle of the park, because we've got experienced players like Sean Williams, Stuart O'Keefe, but both the wrong side of 30. So perhaps something to keep an eye on. You've mentioned Omar Bogle. It's a name I'd written down. Obviously, hasn't been great for the last few years after bursting onto the scene a few years ago, I think, at Grimsby. But yeah, you can't argue it at 7 in 18 in the league. I mean, he's got 1 more than Gills.
He's funny because some of our fans look at him and say, well, he doesn't run around enough, right? And he'll be up front with a guy called Will Evans, who we took out of the Welsh leagues, who's definitely got some promise. And he does run around an awful lot. So there's a bit of a contrast between the two. You've got one guy, Will Evans, who will be herring around all over the pitch, right? Bogle doesn't do that, but Bogle can finish, and he has got a bit of quality about him. The goal against Stockport, he took the ball on the edge of the box, beat 4 players, crossed it for one of our fullbacks, who I was mentioning, wing backs, who gets up, to tap it in. You know, he has got something about him, but he doesn't run around a huge amount. It doesn't bother me because he can score.
Well, if you're getting a goal every other game, then you tend to forgive that, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, goal every other game. We can't even do that collectively. Let's go back a month or so. Obviously, we've just sort of gone off on a little bit of a tangent there, and that's great because I want to find out about Newport County. That's the point of these videos. But James Rowberry was sacked, I think, midway through October.
Yeah.
And was replaced by Graham Coughlin on the 20th of October. So he's not had loads of time with the squad yet, Coughlin, but seems to have steadied the ship, like you've already mentioned. But let's talk specifically about Rowberry. It was always going to be big boots to fill, wasn't it? I think coming in and replacing Michael Flynn, who's a club legend down in Wales and, you know, a bit of a cult hero at Gills after a spell here in the mid-2000s as well. But just briefly, why did it just not work out for James Rowberry?
Well, on our pod and amongst our fan base, I'm in the minority because I don't think we should have sacked him. I think the problem was he was, you know, he's a coach effectively. He's a first team coach, and he was a Newport boy, you know, born, brought up in the town, you know, supported the club, you know, so it was brilliant again to have one of our own to follow on from Flynn. He was also one of our own, so it was brilliant from a fan's point of view. I think he's the youngest player, youngest coach to get all of his badges, and, you know, so he's highly thought of as a coach. But there is a transition, isn't there, from being a coach to being a manager? And I think some of the pragmatism, which Coughlin's clearly got, I think sometimes Rowberry was trying to stick to his principles of a passing game, pass out from the back, you know, a Division 4 version of tiki-taka, if you want, was what he was trying to do. Last season, we played some of the best football I've seen us play in 40 odd years. You know, we did play some really good stuff. But if mistakes are getting made and you haven't necessarily maybe got the players to play that style of football, then, you know, we were losing. Nobody was tanking us. We just kept losing by the odd goal, you know. But we were, you know, we've never been in the relegation places. I think we let him go a bit too early, personally. And I think his mistake was to not sometimes say, do you know what, we do need to be a little bit more pragmatic. You know, if we're one up, let's maybe, you know, bring on some of the older heads, shut up shop a little bit, you know, get a couple more wins, get us into mid-table, and I think he would have been okay. So it's very fine lines, isn't it, sometimes between success and failure. And,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, and that's why he went, really, because you know, we weren't getting the results. Our home form at the end of last season dipped badly. You know, and yet we were in contention all of last season, either in the playoff places or the automatics, but we just dipped off towards the end. And the home form this year under Rowberry carried on being poor. And I think, you know, the fans started to get on his back. And then as a result of that, he wasn't able to pull us out of that sort of spiral a little bit of poor home form. And I think that's what cost him. He was too much of a sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? The opposite. He was too much of an idealist, really, in his style of football, I think, which we couldn't deliver. And he needed to wed in some pragmatism to give himself more time. He didn't do it, and he paid for that.
We've got the opposite issue with Neil Harris at the moment. Is a lot of the fan base are saying that he's setting us up not to win football matches, but to try and not lose them because we're not scoring enough. But then obviously, if you do concede a goal, you're in real trouble. And similar to what you said about your game at the weekend, we was similar. We was well in the game against a decent Northampton side. They're third for a reason, but then our centre-back decided to pass it to Sam Hoskins on the edge of the box just before half-time, and he's got 13 this season, so that's even worse from our point of view compared to our Bogle. And so that was a nice tweet to read Saturday evening that Sam Hoskins has got more than double what we've got as a squad. But we turn up every week and we keep believing that it will change. And Coughlin's come in though, back to Newport, and 6 games, I think, in all competitions, a couple of wins against Colchester, 1 in the league, 1 in the cup.
Yeah.
2 decent draws, like you've already mentioned, Northampton and Mansfield, 2 sides that I think could be there or thereabouts. So that's creditable draws. A couple of defeats as well. So obviously still trying to bed in and get his own ideas across. And it never does happen overnight, does it? So what's the hopes for the rest of the season?
Leicester in the Carabao. So, you know, we went to went to Leicester City. You know, we only lost 3-0 there. That's no disgrace, is it? Really, it's got the Premier League.
Not at all.
And then it was only the Stockport game, which was, you know, reasonably tight that we lost. So I think he'll probably feel that he's making a bit of a difference. He's stopped the rot. We're quite solid.
Yeah, sure. Because if you get something against Stockport, then suddenly the only defeat's against the Premier League team, and it's a very different picture. Yeah, 100%. What's What's the fan base's feeling towards the rest of the season now? Is it obviously, I'm assuming they're thinking promotion's probably, out the window, so it'd be consolidation or a little bit more ambitious?
I mean, I think I think now most of us would set off for a nice solid mid-table. Get Copland through to get through the transfer windows, and let's see who we can bring in the summer, and let's see what he can do and what he wants. But I mean, I'm always the arch optimist. So I'm thinking, well, every year in this league, every time we've been in it for 10 years now, and every year someone puts a run together, there'll be someone who runs away at the top, and usually there's not much separates a big chunk of teams around the middle. And you string 5 wins together, and suddenly you're in the, you're up there. But we're a long way from stringing 5 wins away. So I'd settle for a couple of wins and a couple of draws, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think pragmatically we've got to say mid-table we'd be happy with.
Oh, mid-table, that seems a long way off at the moment. For us, a couple of goals would be nice. Don't know about a couple of wins. I think we scored the last time we scored 2 in a home game in the league was January the 29th.
So what's happened to you guys then, Matt? Just a little bit from my knowledge and from Newport feeling to this, because you've obviously came down and it is becoming a harder and harder league, I think, this year every year.
And I didn't come down, and I've said this to plenty of people and said that I didn't think we was coming down and we was, going to be top 3 and we was going to win the league or any sort of that thing. We knew that there's big teams in this division, and it's a very different setup to League One, and that's no disrespect to the clubs in League Two. It's more robust. I think it's slightly more old school. Centre halves will just boot you up in the air, for want of a better word. And you had them teams that were in League One that had filtered almost down from the Premier League, your Charltons, your Sheffield Wednesdays, your Ipswiches, your Portsmouths and all that. So there was games where you had the opportunity to play a little bit, or at least, be able to bring the ball under control before you're getting a whack up the arse. You don't get that in League Two. There's, Forest Green, Swindon last season, doing a bit of research, were probably the anomalies.
Yeah.
But we haven't scored enough goals. I think defensively we're probably mid-table, just below. I think we've only conceded, we played 17, conceded 19. I think we've only conceded 37 in 35 games or something there or thereabouts under Harris since he took over in January. So defensively, we're absolutely fine. But when you're averaging 0.3 a goal a game, it's so much pressure on that back four to keep a clean sheet just to get you a draw, essentially. And you cannot draw your way to be successful. I don't think he knows his best 11. I don't think he knows his best system, which is a little bit concerning a third of the way through the campaign. But like I've already said, we'll keep turning up or watching on iFollow or listening on the radio and hoping and praying that it turns. And we've had too many false dawns this season already. But
one of the things that Coughlin's done, which is quite interesting when you were talking about changing 11s there, is Rowley he was a bit of a tinker man, to be honest with you. Coughlin, every game I think so far has basically stuck out the same 11. So he's saying, right, get used to their
role within a system. Yep.
You've got the shirt until you lose it. Get used to the system. You get used to what I expect of you. So that's one of the things he's done straight away, which is quite simple, really, isn't it? But he is saying to the players, this is where you're playing. This is who's playing there. This is what I expect from you. If you then mess up, we'll look at changing it. But he has put out the same 11.
Yeah, it does help. Continuity in anything is always a big assistance, isn't it, to trying to be successful, whatever that is, relatively speaking. But I know Harris has come out and said that he's not been able to put out his best 11. He's only been able to do it twice. So injury suspensions taken effect as well. But we're clutching at straws a little bit as a fan base at the moment that it is going to change. I can't see it until January, to be quite honest. There's talk of a takeover you might have seen on social media, but until that's like with signings, until you see the bloke holding the scarf and the contract sign, it means absolutely nothing. Absolutely. But we just got to hope that it does turn. You might have someone scores off their backside at the weekend and pinch a win, and suddenly everything looks a little bit different. But there's no sign of it, unfortunately. We're recording this on a Wednesday night, and so there's not been any press conferences from the clubs, which are generally done on a Thursday. So we're not sure in terms of injuries and suspensions. Like I say, Gills played in the week. I don't think anyone suffered any injury problems. There were a couple back on the bench that have been missing. So we should hopefully have a fairly substantial array of players to pick from, certainly more than what we have had recently. But what do you think the Newport County 11 will be come 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon?
So, I mean, I'm really glad we haven't got a game midweek this week, because I think because I was saying we've been putting out the same 11, a couple of our players did look a bit tired on Saturday, particularly a couple of the young lads we've got on loan. So I'm hoping that this week, gives Coughlin a bit more time with the players, but she hasn't had a huge amount because we've been going, Saturday, Tuesday.
Sure.
So he's got a week with them now. So hopefully that will help us a little bit, and hopefully the players who were a little bit more tired can refresh themselves this week. So almost certainly we'll play a 5-3-2 system. I'm expecting a change at keeper. So we've got two number ones really who vie for the spot in Joe Day and Townsend. Most of the fan base goes for Townsend, even though Joe Day's been a bit of a club legend over the years.
Sure.
Joe Day not having a good season, I think it's fair to say, and he was calamitously at fault, certainly for the first Stockport goal and arguably for the second, and his distribution has been poor. So I'm expecting him to be changed on Saturday and for Townsend to come in, who, also makes mistake, but I think he's a more solid all-round keeper, and I think most fans would agree with that. So I expect him to play at the back, number one, and then we'll have Norman on the right-hand side as a right wing back, who will annoy your fans immensely. He's one of those players who all opposition fans can't stand, but from a home fan, we like him, and he chunters up and down that right-hand side, and he gets tackles in, and he annoys people and niggles, and but he's good. We like him.
Okay.
Back the three centre, and the other side will be one of the Lewises. We've got bizarrely two left wing backs, both called A. Lewis. We've got Aaron Lewis, who's currently got the slot and scored against Stockport. I expect him to retain his place. And we've got a young guy called Adam Lewis on loan from Liverpool, who's also decent. So we've got our wing backs are good. Okay. We'll play three centre backs. We'll play Mickey Demetrio, who is a solid, club guy. He's been there for a long time. Heart of the team, really. Watch out for his long throws. If you're not aware of them, he's got one of those razor sort of pings it in, so we'll play for a lot of those, and we've scored goals off his long throws this season. We'll play Priestley Farquharson alongside him, who's a massive unit, is improving. We got him out of the Welsh leagues, but is prone to mistakes. So he when we played Colchester, he was brilliant against John McKindy. He absolutely out-muscled him, outpowered him and everything. So if you've got a big guy up front rather than like a mobile guy, then Priestley will probably take him, but he won't be as good against the more mobile likes like Paddy Madden from Stockport on the weekend. And then alongside him, hopefully James Clark will be back, who is again a solid, dependable centre-half. On Saturday, we had to play Drysdale alongside him. Our view from the pod is that Drysdale and Farquharson together in the back line is a bit weak, but if only one of them plays alongside the experience of Demetrio and Clark, we should be okay.
We had Drysdale on loan a couple of seasons ago under Steve Evans, and he played centre back or defensive midfield. Looked, in patches he looked all right, but again, it's a kid on loan. You understand why they're out on loan. There's errors in them, and there's polishing to do with these rough diamonds.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think he's got something, but he doesn't. He is prone to a bit of a clanger, and where we are in the league at the moment, the same as you want solidity there, don't you? And you want that back three to work.
100%.
Then in midfield, we'll likely play Scott Bennett, classic, holding midfield player, been around a long time again, solid spine of our side, who's been at the club for a long time, 200 plus appearances for us. And then alongside him, where the legs will primarily be from a guy called Nathan Mariah Welsh, who we've got on loan from Bournemouth, who does look a player. This lad, I like him. Can take the ball on the half turn, can progress the ball with it. Has got legs. Has got something about him, I think. He didn't play well against Stockport. He's one of the ones who looked a bit tired because he's been, playing pretty solidly. But hopefully, rest this week, he's decent. And then we got James Waite alongside him, who's a tiny little guy, a bit like an angry wasp. Obviously useless in the air. So again, if your midfield get on top of him and get over him, you can dominate him. But he's pretty decent on the deck and good running with it. So we've got two sort of runners in there who are ball players. That'll be the three. And then we're obviously Omar Bogle up front alongside Will Evans, who I mentioned again, who will run around everywhere. So that I expect will be the lineup.
Interesting. So we have to keep an eye on it, because I think we can watch it now on iFollow, can't we? If we're not going as away fans, because I think the blackout's been taken away because of the World Cup. So which is what I'll be doing. Number one, we're crap at the moment, and it's not persuading me to travel to Wales in the middle of November. No disrespect to Wales. And number two, there's rail strikes again, isn't there?
Brilliant.
So probably wouldn't get home even if I did get to Wales. Gills, I'm not sure what the team, and I must say that's probably one of the most in-depth 11s we've had on the show. So thank you very much for that. That gives us loads of information. I do know the goalkeeper will be Jake Turner because Glenn Morris on loan from Crawley has unfortunately damaged his shoulder last week, so he's out for a few weeks, I believe. I think he'll go with 4-2-3-1 or maybe a 4-4-2. Probably Robbie McKenzie will probably go back to right back. It'll be Elkan Baggott partnered with either Will Wright or Max Emar at the heart of the defence. It's a tricky one. Baggott's coming on loan from Ipswich, been really, really good. In fact, he's our top scorer in the league. That just again emphasises how poor we are offensively, that our centre-back with 2 is our top league goal scorer. Max Emar, loads of experience, 350 games for the club, but Will Wright, dead ball specialist, 5 assists this season, most creative player, again, sums up our problems. So that'd be one of them with Elkan Baggott. It'd probably be Ryan Law back in the side at left back because he was rested in the week in the cup game. Be interesting to see whether Harris drops one of Sean Williams or Stuart O'Keefe because they are club captain and club vice captain, but they're both pedestrian and they both lack legs. So it'd be a battle going up against your 2 that do have legs. So I'd be inclined to maybe drop O'Keefe or Williams and partner the other one with Dom Jeffries, who we got in from Brentford, who I think was at Newport as a youngster.
Yeah.
He got injured start of the season. We're just starting to see him in the side a bit more now. Loads of energy, likes a tackle.
Player, I think,
He's been decent the last few weeks. Got man of the match Tuesday night from the sponsors. So I'd partner him with Williams or O'Keefe. I'd then get Ben Reeves back in the side. Now he's fit again in the 10 to try and get us playing in between the lines and trying to drop into space to be able to stretch that back 3. Jordan Green, I think, has been all right the last couple of weeks. As all right as an attacking player can be in a side that doesn't score goals. So I'd play him from the right. Scott Cashkett from the left, and then probably Lewis Walker as the number 9. He scored the winner on Tuesday night. He's got 4 in all this season, all in the cups. But goal scorers playing with confidence, coming off the back of a goal in a recent appearance, you want. And then we can probably change that to a 4-4-2 if need be. Cashkett would probably go up alongside Walker, and Ben Reeves would play as like a tucked-in winger from the left. So that'd be my 11. Last question before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Score prediction.
Right. Okay. You're not going to like me for this. So on our pod on the weekend when we did a preview of this, we all went for a win, but most were sort of going scrappy 1-0 win. I confidently said we're going to win 3-0.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know why. I just think that Coughlin's going to get he's going to get wound up. He's had a week off with them. I think I think we'll play fairly no nonsense stuff, and I think we will try and test that back four and get some balls in there and see what Bogle can do. And our wing backs will, I think that's where the success is going to come. Wing backs will cause you some problems, I think, if you're not ready for that. But I think all of us, as say you guys would, scrappy 1-0 win, we would all settle for that if we could get it, because our home form's been dire.
Well, I've looked at the home form and obviously our away form as well, and I've written down
0-0.
I think it will be. I just can't see being loads of goals. Like I say, we're solid enough defensively, but there's obviously more pressure on us when we don't score goals. So 0-0, or if I was a betting man, I'd say you'd have to go to the side of you if I had to lean to one side of the fence, purely because if you score, we've then got to score 2 in a football match, and we've not scored 2 in the league to win a football match since August 2021.
Yeah. So we need to take the lead. That's what we need to
take the lead, and you're almost guaranteed that you won't lose the football match. Yes, because as I've already said 100 times, we don't score enough goals. Ian, it's been a real pleasure, mate. I really appreciate you coming on.
Listen, all the best for the season, not for Saturday, but for the rest.
Of course, no, absolutely. And if you go and enjoy the game.
Nice
Gills fans and Newport fans, if you are watching, please comment down below. Please drop a like and subscribe. We are moving towards 2,200 subscribers, which I still find, frankly, astonishing. So thank you for the ongoing support. I will put the details of the Newport County podcast in the description at the bottom of the video. So go and check them out. I did do a little written piece for them that I think they used on their recent podcast. But yeah, go and have a listen, because you get everything Newport perspective. Won't be going to the game, like I've already said, Saturday, for 2 reasons. We're rubbish and no trains, and I can't be bothered to drive. So should be back Monday, looking back on the game with Reese of German Gills. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week. Keep smiling and up the Gills.